Last week was the scariest week of my life. I'm a nurse, and I always felt like I knew what to expect. After my divorce, I moved to a small suburban neighborhood, thinking it'd be a safe place for my 8-year-old daughter and me. But everything changed one evening after a long shift at the hospital. I finally settled in at home when my sister called. She sounded frantic. "You need to stay away," she said. "I discovered something." I felt chills run down my spine. I didn't understand why I felt so scared. The house was unusually quiet. My daughter didn't greet me like she usually did. I called for her, and after a moment she slowly appeared from her room. Her face was pale. I asked her what was wrong. She whispered, "I heard laughing, but it wasn't a person. It was just there." I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just her imagination. Over the next few days I noticed things felt off. The new neighbors rarely came out. When they did, it was always late at night. I was tired from work, but shadows in the corners of the room seemed to shift when I looked away. My instincts told me something was wrong. One night, I sat in the living room, scrolling through my phone, when I heard that laughter. Soft at first, then it turned broken and mocking. I felt my heart race. I stood up and peered out the window, but I saw nothing, just streetlights flickering. My daughter rushed into the room, looking sad and curious. "Mommy, why are they laughing?" she asked, staring toward the dark hallway. I hugged her tight, but I felt cold all over. I didn't understand why I felt like something was watching us. The next day I called my sister again. I told her everything. She sounded even more worried. "You need to stay away from that place," she insisted. "I found something in the old house we grew up in. Please believe me." I begged her to tell me what she meant, but she didn't share the details. My heart raced again when I hung up. That night, right before I tucked my daughter in, she asked, "Mommy, do you think they're making fun of us?" I didn't want to answer. I just held her closer as that laughter echoed outside, growing louder and more taunting. I had to find out what was happening. I stepped onto the porch, feeling the cold wood under my feet. Suddenly, I stopped. My heart pounded in my chest. A figure stood at the edge of the street, silent and still, watching us. I didn't know how long they had been there. I wanted to scream, but the laughter erupted, drowning out my voice, and just like that, the figure was gone. I turned back toward the house, anxiety gripping me. I could feel something behind me. Then I heard it, a soft whisper. "Why are you still here?" It sent chills through me, deep and heavy. I spent the rest of the night awake, listening for any sounds that might break the silence. My daughter's steady breathing next to me was a small comfort. But every creak of the house felt amplified. I kept thinking about my sister's warning, and what she might have discovered. The next morning, I was exhausted but determined to uncover the truth. I had to know what was happening in our neighborhood. I decided to start with the neighbors. I noticed they all seemed to disappear during the day, and only came out at night. It was strange and unsettling. I put on a brave face and knocked on the door of the house next to ours. A woman answered, her face pale and eyes wide as if she hadn't seen sunlight in days. She quickly glanced back inside before stepping out. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I introduced myself and tried to keep it light. "I'm just trying to get to know the neighbors. We're new here." Her gaze darted to my daughter playing in the yard. "You should be careful. This place has a strange energy." "What do you mean?" I probed, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "They come out when it's dark. The sounds... You shouldn't listen. It's not safe," she muttered, glancing over her shoulder again. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. What do you mean by they? Who are you talking about? She hesitated, fear flickering across her face. You'll learn soon enough. Then, without another word, she retreated into her house and closed the door, leaving me staring at the empty space where she stood. I walked back home, my heart racing. I didn't want to scare my daughter or let her know I was unnerved. We had to stay strong together. That night, the laughter returned. This time it was closer, almost echoing around the corners of our home. My daughter whimpered, seeking comfort. I pulled her into my arms, whispering reassurances that I wasn't sure I believed myself. The laughter morphed into a haunting melody that crept under my skin. With my heart pounding, I decided to go back to the neighbor's house. I needed help. But as I opened the door, a stifling silence enveloped me, so thick that it felt like a heavy blanket. Then everything changed. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, a flash of movement in the shadows of the yard. My hands trembled as I cautiously stepped outside. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer came, just that horrifying laughter ringing out again, echoing through the air with a sinister undertone. That's when I saw it. Standing at the edge of the trees, a figure, cloaked in darkness. I felt a rush of blood drain from my face as their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, locking onto mine. A surge of fear gripped me. I couldn't look away. It didn't move. It just stared. Before I could process what I was seeing, the laughter crescendoed, drowning out everything. I turned to grab my daughter, but the figure was gone. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just dealing with shadows or laughter. There was something much darker here, lurking, waiting. I felt a rush of panic. I needed to get my daughter out of this place. But the sensation of cold air brushed against my neck again. Someone was watching us, and they were getting closer. I hardly slept that night. Every shadow and noise playing tricks on my mind. Morning came too quickly, and the sun barely broke through the clouds. I watched my daughter play on the living room floor, her innocence a steadfast reminder of what I was up against. I couldn't let these shadows invade her world. Determined to find answers, I decided to investigate the streets surrounding our house more thoroughly. I needed to know what my sister had uncovered. Armed with my phone, I planned to record anything unusual that I might encounter. My first stop was the old park at the end of the street. I had heard whispers from other neighbors about strange gatherings that took place after sunset. Walking into the park felt like stepping into a different world. The air was still and heavy, as if pressing down on me. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears, louder than the shuffling leaves. I scanned the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of activity, but found only desolation. Just as I was about to turn back, I caught sight of something glimmering in the dirt near the swing set. Curiosity pulled me closer. I knelt down to inspect it. It was a broken locket, tarnished but intricately designed. The latch was cracked open, revealing 2 fading pictures inside. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized one of the faces instantly. It was my sister, much younger, smiling brightly. The other picture I couldn't decipher, just a shadowy figure standing beside her. A chill ran down my spine. Suddenly I heard a rustling sound behind me. I turned quickly, desperate and terrified. My heart raced as I took a few cautious steps back, scanning the park for movement. The trees loomed over me, casting long shadows, and I felt the familiar sensation of being watched. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The only response was the rustling wind. I turned to leave, clutching the locket tightly. I could feel the anxiety creeping over me like a thick fog. Just as I stepped onto the path, I noticed a figure in the distance, standing at the edge of the trees. It was obscured, but I could see the outline of someone watching me. My instinct screamed at me to run, but instead, I forced myself to stand still. I tried to make out their features, but the more I stared, the more they seemed to fade into the darkness. Then, without warning, a scream pierced the silence. It was my daughter. I whipped around, panic surging through my veins. She was still at home, and the sound echoed in my mind. But it felt real. Too real. My heart raced as I broke into a run, darting back down the path, the locket slipping through my fingers and clattering against the ground. I arrived at the house, panting and out of breath. The door stood ajar, swinging slightly on its hinges. Fear gripped me, my gut twisted. "No!" I screamed, rushing inside. My daughter's laughter echoed through the halls, but it was different, too high-pitched, too frenetic. "Sweetheart," I called, my voice trembling. No answer came, just the laughter again, growing louder, sounding almost mocking. I stepped further inside. Everything felt off. The air grew heavier with each step I took. Then I saw it, flickering shadows darting across the walls. And then, in the corner of my eye, a glimpse of the cloaked figure from last night. My heart dropped. It was back. I stumbled backward in shock, my pulse racing. The cloaked figure stood still, its presence distorting the light around it. It wasn't just watching. It was waiting. My instinct screamed at me to grab my daughter and run, but I felt frozen in place, rooted to the spot. "Mommy!" Her voice rang out again, this time from the kitchen. The laughter was gone, replaced by something far more chilling. The playful tone had morphed into an urgent plea. I turned toward the sound, fighting against the paralyzing fear. "Stay here, honey!" I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady. I stepped carefully, knowing too well the darkness that lurked in these shadows. The figure shifted slightly, its cloak flowing like smoke. I dared to glance back at it, but it had vanished. I rushed to the kitchen, my heart pounding. As I crossed the threshold, I saw my daughter, sitting at the table, calmly coloring. The sunlight streaming through the window cast a serene glow on her, yet something felt wrong. "Why are you here, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You should be in the living room." I closed the kitchen door behind me, locking out the anxiety of the hallway. "I wanted to color, Mommy." She beamed, holding up a crayon. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of something dark, something that didn't belong. "Okay, but—" I hesitated, replaying my sister's warning in my head. "Did you hear anything? Did anyone come inside?" She shook her head, but a shadow passed over her face, like a cloud drifting across the sun. "The man in the park," she mumbled, barely above a whisper. "What man?" I asked, my stomach knotting. "The one with the cloak. He was looking for you." Her voice trailed off, replaced by a sudden, intense silence. Before I could process her words, a loud crash came from the living room. I spun around, adrenaline surging through my body. Something wasn't right. "Stay here!" I instructed, bolting back toward the hallway. As I reached for the door, I thought I saw the figure again, lurking at the edge of my vision. But this time, it felt different, more menacing. I plunged into the living room, ready to face whatever chaos awaited. My heart sank as I took in the scene. Furniture overturned, cushions strewn everywhere, but no sign of the cloaked figure. And in the center of it all lay the locket I'd found in the park, glowing unnaturally on the floor. I edged closer, every instinct telling me to run. My sister's voice echoed in my mind. "You need to stay away." Had she known something deeper? I was beginning to feel that my search for answers was leading me down a dangerous path. Then I heard it again. The laughter. This time it was my daughter's voice, but twisted and warped, echoing from the darkened corner of the room. "Mommy, come play." It called, but it was not her. The room chilled, and I felt the presence return. I turned, dread settling in my bones. "No!" I shouted, the fear igniting a surge of protective rage. But my daughter was still in the kitchen. Was she safe? Before I could decide, a heavy shadow swept over me, swallowing the light. Then everything went dark. I gasped as I woke up, the air thick and oppressive. I was back in the living room, but everything felt different. My body tingled, disoriented as I blinked against the darkness pressing in. The locket lay still on the floor, but now it was dull, lifeless, as if it had drained all its power. I scrambled to my feet, my heart racing once more. "Emma!" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. I turned toward the kitchen, but it felt like miles away. A silence wrapped around me, heavy and suffocating. Panic surged through me. What had happened? Was the cloaked figure gone? I took a hesitant step forward, looking for my daughter. "Emma, where are you?" I stepped through the mess in the living room, navigating around the overturned couch and scattered toys. Every shadow seemed to reach for me. I held my breath, straining to hear anything, but only silence answered. Then I noticed something. On the edge of the overturned coffee table, a small piece of paper fluttered. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was a note, written in a scrawl I almost recognized. "Protect her from the dark," it read. "Do not let it in. Not again." Ice coursed through my veins. It felt personal. I turned the note over, hoping for more information, but the other side was blank. A chill ran down my spine. I knew I wasn't supposed to be here, but I couldn't leave without my daughter. "Emma!" I called again, my voice trembling as I headed for the kitchen. The worry gnawed at me. The twisted laughter echoed in my memory, and I pushed the thought away. When I reached the kitchen, the sight made my stomach drop. Emma wasn't at the table. The crayons lay scattered on the floor and the coloring book was open, but she was nowhere to be found. "Emma!" I cried, panic rising. Then I heard it. A faint giggle coming from the hall. I dashed toward it, my mind screaming for her safety. As I stepped into the dimly lit hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I strained to see into the dark corners, but they looked empty. The laugh echoed again, sudden and close. "Emma!" I started to move, the shadows thicker and thicker, enveloping me. Just as I reached the first dark corner, a figure slipped around the corner at the end of the hall, moving too fast for me to catch. I took a step back, fear gripping me. "Who's there?" I shouted. The quiet answer only confirmed my dread. Then suddenly I felt a pull from behind me. I whirled around and there was that cloaked figure again, standing by the kitchen entrance. I could see its face now, two glowing eyes staring directly at me, filled with an ancient hunger. "Mommy, come play." Emma's voice came from behind the figure, sweet and inviting. My heart sank, because now I recognized that tone. I turned, ready to grab my daughter, but the figure lunged forward, blocking my only path. Like the dark was coming alive, it extended toward me. I felt the air chill around me, grasping at my very soul. I had to make a choice, and whatever path I took would change everything. Then, just as it seemed everything would plunge into darkness again, the lights in the house flickered. In that split second, one thought burned in my mind. Had my sister meant for me to hear this? I had to get to Emma, but the way was blocked. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what was coming. I was running out of time. I couldn't waste another second. I could feel the cloaked figure's presence behind me, grasping shadows ready to swallow me whole. But Emma's giggles cut through the fear like a knife. I had to reach her. Frantic, I darted to the door on my left, praying it would lead me closer to my daughter. I flung it open and stepped into a room that felt colder than the rest of the house. My breath came out in quick puffs, visible in the air. The room was drenched in darkness, the only source of light flickering from a single weak bulb overhead. I squinted, desperate to see anything other than shadows. My heart thudded as I stepped further inside, and that's when I saw it. A wooden doll, oddly placed in the center of the floor, its eyes eerily following me as I moved. I knelt to inspect it. Its small mouth was painted into a permanent smile, and the dress it wore was frayed, as if it had been worn in countless adventures. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me. I reached out to touch it, but the moment my fingers brushed against its surface, a cold wind swept through the room, making the bulb flicker violently. "Emma!" I shouted again, the fear lining my voice. I turned around, instinctively looking for a way out, but the door I entered through slammed shut with an unsettling thud. Panic intensified. I grabbed the doll, hoping it was some form of clue or warning. But all it gave me was a sense of impending doom. I whipped around, ready to face whatever lurked in the shadows, just as the lights blazed back to life. And that's when I heard it. The soft whispering filled the room, like a stream of voices that layered over each other. "Leave. Now. Protect her." "Emma!" I shouted once more, my voice rising above the chaos. The whispers only grew louder, enveloping me in a cacophony of dread. No more waiting. No more hesitation. I slammed my palm against the door, desperate for it to open. It refused. I gave it another push, gritting my teeth in frustration. Then, without warning, the whispers stopped. Silence fell, thick and heavy. I stood there, trembling. What had changed? Just as my mind raced with uncertainty, the faint laughter echoed again from the hallway. But this time it was different. Taunting. Sinister. "Mommy, come to me." Emma's voice beckoned, distorted through the air. I felt a chill run down my spine. I turned, heart pounding, and yanked the door open. But instead of a hallway, I found myself staring into an abyss, the darkness pulsing like a living thing. Suddenly I gripped the doll tighter, feeling that it somehow held the key to everything. Whatever that cloaked figure wanted, whatever lay ahead, I was about to find out. I stepped into the dark, determination and fear mingling as I called out, "I'm coming, Emma!" But the void only laughed, leaving me to wonder if stepping into that darkness was the bravest decision I would ever make. Or the last. Darkness enveloped me as I stepped forward. The air was heavy, clinging to my skin like a wet blanket. I hesitated, fear clawing at my mind. I could still hear Emma's voice, playful yet twisted. "Mommy, come to me." I tried to focus, pushing aside the echoes of her laughter. The doll felt warm in my palm, as if it was alive. As I ventured deeper, that warmth spread, pulsing against the cold. Each step forward felt like wading into a long, dark tunnel. "Emma!" I called again, my voice trembling. Each syllable felt useless against the shroud of silence that followed. Suddenly a flicker in the corner of my eye caught my attention. I turned just in time to see a glimmering figure moving in the distance, a flash of white. My heart raced. I took off toward the light, desperate for any sign of my daughter. Each step made the shadows seem to stretch. They reached for me, grasped at my soul. The laughter faded but left behind an oppressive weight. As I reached the lighter area, I stumbled into another room. This one was small and cluttered, filled with old dusty furniture and broken toys. Family portraits hung crookedly on the walls, their faces blurred, as if worn away by time and sorrow. I felt a chill run down my spine. A suffocating sense of dread settled around me. In the corner, a small table was covered in toys, and just above it hung a dusty mirror. I approached, drawn by the eerie beckoning of the glass. My reflection stared back, but didn't look like me. I stepped closer, and the figure in the mirror warped, the face morphing into my sister's. "Stay away," she echoed, lips moving in sync with my own. Something terrible's happening. Confusion swept over me. Why was my sister's image warning me? I opened my mouth to call out, but the mirror darkened, trapping her words within. And then I saw it. A faint outline behind the reflection. A shadow, lurking, creeping closer. I felt my breath hitch. Was that the cloaked figure? I stepped back, feeling the doll slip from my grasp. It hit the floor with a soft thud. In that moment of distraction, the figure lunged from the mirror, and I barely had time to react. I scrambled backward, pain shooting through my wrist as I fell. The void from earlier yawned behind me once again. It was pulling at my feet, hungry. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed myself up and dove for the doll, grabbing it just before the shadow could touch me. As I clasped the doll tightly, the figure froze, its dark form wavering like smoke. That was when I realized. The doll wasn't just a doll. It was a shield. I could protect Emma. I had to find her. With renewed determination, I stood tall and took a step forward. The figure slipped back, unwilling to approach me as long as I held the doll. I whipped around, scanning the room for another exit, desperate to reach Emma before it was too late. And then a door appeared, almost out of nowhere, a glowing outline beckoning me toward escape. I rushed toward it, hope igniting in my chest, only to hear the laughter again, sharper this time, echoing through the room. "Mommy, if you want her, come play." My heart raced as I reached for the doorknob, ready to face whatever was waiting behind it. I needed to make it through. I had to save my daughter. That shadow wouldn't win. But as the door creaked open, the laughter shifted to a deep rumble, and I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around, heart pounding, the doll clutched tightly in my hands. The cold grip on my shoulder felt like death itself, an icy reminder of what I was battling. I flinched, my instinct screaming at me to fight, to run. But there was nowhere to go. I was trapped in this room, shadows dancing around me. "Let go of me!" I yelled, pushing against the pressure. The grip tightened, and I felt a whisper against my ear. "You're too late." Panic surged through me. I had no idea who it was, but I couldn't take my eyes off the door. The light beyond it flickered tantalizingly, a beckoning promise of safety. I turned back to the shadow, every instinct telling me to flee, yet I was paralyzed. I had to find Emma. I had to face this thing. In a moment of clarity, I raised the doll in front of me. "Stay back." The doll felt warm, the warmth pulsing in sync with my heartbeat. The figure hesitated, and I took my chance. I pushed through the door, forcing it open wider. The laughter faded slightly, but an odd sense of urgency clawed at my mind. I needed to find Emma. The room beyond was a long hallway, walls lined with faded wallpaper and flaking paint. It smelled damp and stale. I ran down the hall, glancing back to see the figure struggling to dissolve back into the shadows, like it was scared of me, or the doll. "Emma!" I shouted again. No answer. Just the distant echoes of my own voice bouncing off the walls. Fear gripped me anew as I pushed myself to move faster. The further I ran, the more the darkness tried to snatch at my heels. At the end of the hallway, I noticed another doorway, its frame warped as if something had tried to force its way through. I stopped, staring at the door. Something was off about it. A sense of dread seeped from the cracks. Taking a deep breath, I raised my fist and knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time, and the door swung open on its own. It opened to a small room lit only by a flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. And in the center was a doll's house. Not just any doll's house, but one that looked exactly like the house I grew up in. I stepped further inside, drawn to it as if it were a magnet. Something caught my eye on the table next to it. A small, glowing orb pulsated gently like a heartbeat. That's when I saw it. A figure resembling Emma sat on the floor beneath the doll's house. My chest tightened. Emma couldn't possibly be here. My daughter was gone. "Mommy?" A small voice echoed from the farther corner of the room, muffled yet familiar. "Mommy, please, help me." I turned sharply, desperation flooding over me. "Emma, where are you?" "Over here." I spotted her behind the doll's house, where a trapdoor glimmered faintly. But just as hope ignited inside me, an intense chill swept through the room, chilling me to the bone. Standing before me was the shadow, larger and more defined than before. "Let her go," I shouted, clenching the doll tightly, ready to fight whatever this was. But as I stepped forward, fear seized me. The shadow laughed, low and menacing. "You're just like your sister, so eager to play." I hesitated, all my instincts screaming for me to turn around. It was too late. I'd walked too far into this nightmare, and I couldn't turn back now. I had to save Emma. But as I took a step closer, the room began to distort, blurring around the edges. The laughter echoed louder, drowning out everything else. I found myself backing away from the darkness that lunged again, the trapdoor now mere inches away. Then everything went dark. Light splintered back in, not the soft glow of safety, but a harsh, unyielding brightness. I blinked against it, my mind racing to catch up. I found myself in a void, floating with no ground beneath me. Panic set in again. Where was Emma? What had happened to the room? Suddenly the faint sound of distant laughter floated through the air, pulling me backward into consciousness. I struggled to find solid ground, my hands grasping for something. Anything. The laughter morphed into a chorus, echoing memories that felt strangely familiar. Then I was back, but not where I'd expected. The doll's house stood beside me, now dark and ominous, its facade chipped and peeling. The trapdoor was slowly creaking open. Shadows twisted around it like dark tendrils, beckoning me closer. "Emma!" I called again, my voice barely rising above the fear tightening in my throat. The laughter faded, replaced by the soft whimpering of a child. I hesitated, listening intently. The fear that had previously fed my adrenaline now paralyzed me. What if I opened that trapdoor and found something I wasn't ready to face? Just as doubt gnawed at my resolve, I heard her voice again, clearer this time. "Mommy, please." Dropping the doll, I rushed toward the trapdoor. With shaking hands, I pulled it open wider. A flight of narrow stairs descended into darkness, each step leading into an abyss that seemed to breathe around me. "Emma!" I shouted, hoping she would reassure me, but the only reply was silence. I took a shaky step down, the floor creaking beneath my weight. Another step, each one weighing heavier than the last, and the darkness closed in from all sides. Reaching the bottom, I found myself in a cramped, dimly lit cellar. The air was thick and musty, a stale sign of neglect. I scanned the room and saw a dim light flickering in one corner. My breath caught as I saw the familiar figure hunched over in the shadows. "Emma!" My heart raced, and without thinking I stumbled toward her. As I got closer, the figure shifted. "Mommy, you found me!" But something was off. The voice sounded wrong, distorted like a record playing at the wrong speed. My stomach dropped. What's happening? I stepped back in fear, the realization settling in. Mommy, please don't go. The figure stood, but it didn't fully resemble Emma. It was like a ghostly reflection, an echo of her, warped by the darkness. "Who are you?" I demanded, terror flooding through me. The laughter returned, ringing throughout the cellar. "Embrace the play!" It taunted, growing taller, darker, its size twisting with the shadows. I stumbled back, but I couldn't leave. Not again. "You're all just pieces in the game." As it lunged towards me, I scrambled toward the stairs. The trapdoor slammed shut above me, leaving me fully engulfed in darkness. I could feel the air pressing in, the laughter swelling. Then came a different sound, a soft, desperate knock from the door above, echoing all around me. "Mommy, Mommy, are you there?" My blood ran cold. I wasn't the only one trapped. I felt the panic rising in my chest, a tidal wave of fear I had never known before. The echoes of my daughter's voice rang out, desperately searching for me, clawing at my resolve. "Emma!" I yelled back, my throat raw with emotion. "I'm here! I'm coming!" While my heart raced, the shadows swirled around me, growing thicker and darker, pressing against my skin like iron chains. I forced myself to focus, to block out the mocking laughter that filled the cellar. I needed to get to Emma, to break through this nightmare we had both been thrown into. I stumbled back to the trapdoor, pounding my fists against it, praying for it to open. "Let me out! I need to get to her!" I shouted, drowning out the laughter that reverberated through the room. But the only answer was a chilling silence, interrupted by that faint and haunting whisper. "Let go." My hands fell to my sides, feeling the weight of despair settle over me, suffocating. I remembered the doll, the warmth I had felt when I held it so tightly. It had offered me protection, a shield against this darkness. It was my only lifeline. With renewed determination, I slammed my hands together in prayer and focused on that warmth. "Please, I'm not going to give up on her," I whispered to the darkness, gripping my hands around empty air, willing the doll to manifest. "I have to find her." In response, a flicker of light appeared in the distant corner of the room, pulsing gently. I squinted, uncertainty battling against my instinct to investigate. What had I unleashed? Without thinking twice, I rushed toward the light, my heart pounding like a drum. As I neared, the glowing orb wavered, shimmering like a mirage. Hesitation crept through me, but Emma's voice echoed again. "Mommy, please." As if drawn by an invisible thread, I reached out for the light. The moment my fingers brushed against its surface, it exploded into a cascade of illuminating sparks, swirling around me, pushing the darkness back for an instant. I fell forward into the radiance, and the world around me twisted and distorted. My mind spun as I was enveloped in pure light. Suddenly, I was standing before a large, ornate staircase leading back up to the hall. I hesitated, looking back at the swirling shadows fighting against the light. "Mommy!" I heard Emma again, desperate and close. "Hold on, sweetie. I'm coming." Pain surged through my heart. I had to be strong for her. I tore up the staircase, the whispers growing faint as I pushed through the door at the top. Bursting into the hallway, the world felt solid again. A golden glow filled the air, and my surroundings came back into focus. But something nagged at my mind, a faint echo of laughter still tickling the edges of my consciousness. "Emma!" I cried again, my voice buoyed by an adrenaline rush. I darted through familiar rooms, searching for my daughter, praying she was safe. But the house felt oppressive, as though something vile lurked just beneath the surface, watching. I stepped into the living room, the air still, a silence that felt wrong. "Emma, please, where are you?" My voice cracked, panic straining my throat. Then I saw her. A small figure crouched atop the coffee table, the sunlight streaming through the window and illuminating her face. My heart soared, relief flooding my body. "Emma!" I lunged toward her, reaching for her small frame. When I reached her, I felt the warmth of her skin beneath my fingertips, grounding me. She looked up, her eyes wide and innocent, and I could swear for a fleeting second that I saw shadows flickering behind her expression, a reflection of something darker. "Mommy, I missed you." She grinned, but the tone felt off, too bright, too cheerful, almost like a taunt echoing in the back of my mind. "Let's go, sweetheart. We have to get out of here." I yanked her into my arms, but before I could turn, a chilling wave spread through the room like ice water, freezing me in place. The shadows deepened in the corners of the house, swirling like a storm, changing shape. "Mommy, what's happening?" Emma looked frightened, and my heart sank as I realized I'd led her back here, back into the darkness. I forced myself to maintain a steady tone. "It's okay, darling. Just hold on to me." I turned to face the ominous shape emerging from the shadows. It swelled and morphed before us, shifting like smoke, eyes glowing that unnatural light. "One last game," it taunted. "You've come so far. But can you protect her?" With Emma in my arms, I felt the surge of horror. The shadows had come alive, and somehow they knew I was weak. But I couldn't let them take her. I wouldn't allow it. "Get away from us!" I shouted, clutching Emma tighter as I felt the oppressive weight close in. The laughter crescendoed, and I knew I couldn't face it alone. Suddenly, the doll I dropped earlier stirred in my memory. I reached for the light from the orb still shining within my mind. "You will not have her!" I cried, fueled by desperation and rage. In that moment, light exploded outward from my chest, illuminating the darkened room, warding off the encroaching shadows. The figure howled, twisting in agony as the light broke its hold. "Let her go!" I felt the surge of power rush through me, propelling me forward as the brightness pressed against the darkness. But as I surged ahead, I caught a glimpse of my sister's reflection in the shadows, looking at me with a knowing smile. "Protect her," she whispered, and with one final push, I stepped beyond the darkness. I made it through. Emma and I stood outside under the bright sun, the laughter fading into nothingness. The shadows melted away like dust blown by the wind, but even as the warmth enveloped us, I still felt something lingering. An unanswered question, a shadow of uncertainty that clung to my heart. How had we escaped? What lay hidden in the shadows behind me? As I looked down at my daughter's face, filled with innocence and curiosity, I took a deep breath. Though I was grateful for the sunlight, the shadows wouldn't be behind us forever. I would always wonder what darkness was lurking just out of sight, waiting for the chance to return. I squeezed Emma tighter as we walked away from that house. Every step echoed with unanswered fears. I moved to a different neighborhood days later, trying to escape the memories. Occasionally I catch myself glancing back, half expecting to see that cloaked figure lurking at the edge of my vision. I've never been able to shake that lingering unease. I still think about it sometimes. I still wonder if the darkness is ever truly gone. Would it come for me again? For Emma? But mostly I try not to think about it, for both our sakes.